Welcome back to ReadingBear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, Try to Rip People Off with Shady Flipped Houses? Watch me flip your bank account. Background, my girlfriend and I have been trying to buy a house for a month or two. Housing market where we live is tough, we don't have a huge income, most houses sell within 24 hours, etc. so it's been a struggle. About a month and a half ago we found a house that was perfect. In the neighborhood we wanted, 2-bed 2-bath, at the very top of our price range but still doable, etc. Best part is that it's beautifully renovated, new roof, everything is new and gorgeous. We put in an offer, but get outbid by someone else, which is crushing, if you have yet to experience that. We mourn and then continue searching for other houses, until we get a call from our agent saying that the other buyers backed out and the seller is offering it to us first before putting it back on the market. A quick important note here, the seller is the owner, but is also acting as his own real estate agent. And he runs his own business buying foreclosures and flipping them. This is important later. Back to the rest of the story. We decide to go for it, but are skeptical because why would the other buyers back out on such a perfect house? We go to look at the house again, and the second time we notice some details we previously overlooked in our initial infatuation. Almost all of the interior door hardware is put on incorrectly, door handles backwards, locks not measured correctly so unable to close, some door handles just plain don't work. When we really check out the master bathroom we notice that the shower floor feels spongy, like they didn't fill it underneath before putting the pan in. Drawers don't open because of how pipe fittings were installed, etc. The list could go on much longer, but the point is we started to be concerned about the quality of the work. If that's just the simple exterior stuff, what about the stuff hidden behind the walls? We decide to move forward anyways, knowing we can get a thorough inspection. Our real estate agent, who is an idiot, put language into the purchase agreement giving us the standard contingent on inspection out, along with a written commitment from the seller via email to fix the issues we noted. It's at this crucial juncture that our real estate agent learns some critical information, begrudgingly dragged from the seller at threat of litigation for failure to disclose. The other buyers actually backed out because the seller didn't get permits for any of the renovations he did. Being new to this, and having zero experience with renovations or contractors or really anything house related, we weren't entirely sure what this meant but decided to use our 10 inspection days to learn fast and figure crap out. We call around to all of the city people who handle permitting to see what the implications are of basically the entire house, including roof, all electrical wiring, and all plumbing, being unpermitted. They basically say to run the other direction. My Google and Reddit research turns up that it's kind of absurd to still ask full price for a house in this situation. So we go back to the seller and ask him whether he would consider getting the work permitted or dropping the price the amount it would cost us to get the work permitted. He blows up, basically says we don't know anything because we're girls, don't we know what a hassle it would be to open up the walls to permit all of the wiring and plumbing. Accuses us of trying to extort him, and tells us we're lucky he's even working with us. Okay. It is at this moment that I internally say duck you and decide he's going to suffer some consequences. At this point we still have approximately 8 days in our inspection period, so I start by doing some serious research and putting together all the pieces. Now knowing what a butthole this guy is, I'm seeing some earlier minor concerns in a new light. In our area there are 2 different seller disclosures, one that is thorough and awesome, and an alternative that is shitty and doesn't actually really require the seller to document or disclose much of anything. This seller used the alternative disclosure, and in hindsight it's because if he had used the awesome one he would have had to put down on paper all of the renovations that were done and simultaneously admit that they weren't done with permits. Then I start investigating who did the work for him. Turns out there is no record of the contractors he told us he used in the state, so that's shady. No record of licenses, anything for any of the contractors he said he worked with. Which means there's not actually a solid record of who even did the renovations and whether they're actually contractors with the necessary training. Next I look into the seller's business. Like I said, he works as a real estate agent and also buys foreclosures to flip them and resell at massive profit. I notice he's got a habit of buying houses in poorer areas, largely communities of color, flipping them, and then selling them at much higher values than are reasonable. I pull permits on several of his other projects and lo and behold this is not the first time he has apparently done a ton of work without permits. At this point, here's what I have: shady seller, doing tons of unpermitted work with contractors who might not actually be contractors or licensed to do the work. Selling to a lot of buyers who are unlikely to fully understand the implications of buying a property that is almost entirely unpermitted. For those who, like me 2 months ago, don't have a clear grasp of permitting, here's the short of it: you decide to do renovations, you go to the city to let them know, pull a permit, which is expensive, and then they have inspectors come out to make sure everything is up to code. Without permits, you have no guarantee that any of the work is done to code, which, at least in the case of plumbing and wiring, can be a huge safety issue. In addition, if anything ever does happen as a result of that unpermitted work and your homeowner's insurance finds out it was unpermitted, they can refuse to cover any damages. Again, when you think about what could happen with some shady plumbing and wiring done by people who are not licensed contractors, and then to not have your insurance cover it, well, suffice to say, I am now enraged not only on mine and my girlfriend's behalf, but also for the people who might drop their entire savings on a house they think is amazing and then they get completely screwed. Armed with info on the lack of permits, lack of licensed contractors, and general grossness of the seller, my girlfriend gets in on the action. She goes and makes friends with all of the city people related to construction, code enforcement, and permitting. She works her way up through the ranks, going from the people who answer phones, to the inspectors, all the way up to the district supervisor. She flawlessly pulls the "I'm so helpless, I don't know anything, please tell me if this is a good idea. I don't have any family in town, true, and I'm just trying to make a sound investment in my future and in the community" card. Everyone eats it up and can't get enough, and they're falling all over themselves trying to help her. She lays out all of the information, explaining all of the work that we've seen that's been done, the seller's written confirmation via email of each of the renovations, concerns about the work being done by unlicensed fake contractors, etc. The city people get a justice boner on behalf of this poor young woman just trying to build a future, and the shady older gentleman trying to exploit her, and promptly reassure her that they are going to do everything in their power to look into it. Meanwhile, she should back out of the purchase agreement. The city people kept us updated on their plans, and we waited until the 10th day of our 10-day period to back out because it gave them more time to work. At the end of it all, courtesy of public records and our new biffles in the city permitting and code offices, here's what happened. The day we backed out and cancelled the agreement, the city levied a few small fines against the seller, fines that ended up totaling nearly $50,000. And, now anytime an agent looks at the house listing, there are a whole lot of red flags that pop up that weren't there before. If the seller refuses to pay the fines, the city has said they may put a lien on the house. I may have also conveniently and anonymously written a few blog posts about the seller and their business, which, since they had close to zero internet presence, are now in the top results if anyone Googles them. Note that I said nothing untrue, and nothing I don't have written documentation to back up, so no real risk of libel. I've learned some things reading this sub. This house that the seller had multiple offers on within 12 hours originally has now been sitting on the market untouched for weeks. Every time I see the posting still sitting there with no change, it brings me joy, and hopefully our revenge plot will help prevent some unsuspecting buyer from getting screwed. The next one is titled, "Religious Bully Landlord Gets Her Just Desserts." I had a small bakery and rented a space in a boutique shopping center that offered businesses all run by women. The landlord was super religious, and so were most of the other business owners. I live in the South, it is expected. I'm an atheist. Being in the South, I kept it very quiet and never said anything about her religiosity. I had a great relationship with everyone at the shopping center, including my landlord, until about 10 months into my 1-year lease, when a woman who wanted my space found out about my atheism and outed me to the landlord. Cue a sharp decrease in the amount of business from other vendors, sudden loud religious music being played in the common areas of the center, which I could hear through my windows and closed door. Then a 25% rent hike to only me after being told that rent would not increase, and finally, when I still didn't leave and instead renewed my lease, a flat-out termination of my lease with no stated reason. The renewal never happened, according to her. In between the rent hike and the lease termination, she apologized to me for treating me badly, stating Jesus wouldn't want her to treat people that way. She said that finding out I was an atheist when she believed me to be a Christian had just really thrown her, and she didn't know how to treat me. Everything culminated when she changed the locks on my business door 2 weeks before my lease term was up. I got my keys back, shut down my business, and slowly began moving things out, even though she demanded that I move out immediately. I had put several $1,000s into redecorating the space and getting proper electrical lines run so that I could operate. Over the year, I had blown all of my savings on that business. At the end of my time, I cleaned the space, moved out all of my stuff and left it in better condition than when I moved in. I took lots of pictures, at the beginning and end of the lease, and documented everything in writing. The person who outed me also had a bakery and promptly moved into my space and changed nothing in the decor. I calmly waited 60 days for a return of my $400 security deposit. I have also been a paralegal for 15 years and took a year-long hiatus to try to run this business. On the 61st day, I had an attorney in my firm write a letter to the landlord demanding the statutory amounts owed to me, $1,400. What I got in return was a call from her lawyer to mine telling me to back off and that if I attempted to get my security deposit back, they would call my boss and get me fired. And they would sue me for defamation for a comment I had made on my personal Facebook saying that I thought my lease was terminated because I was an atheist. So I waited the required time frame and filed suit for the $1,400 plus attorney fees. They promptly countersued me for defamation, fraud and a whole racket of other things and wanted $10,000 at a minimum. They claimed that I had caused significant damage to the property and that I had stolen items that belonged to the landlord. I quietly wait for them to prosecute the case. They do nothing. After about 5 months, they offer me $400 to settle. I tell them to duck off. Several more months pass. No discovery, no hearings, nothing. After a year, I filed a no-evidence motion for summary judgment asking that all of their claims be dismissed. They didn't respond. Judge granted my motion. Then I filed a motion for summary judgment for $5,000 in attorney fees plus the $1,400 in statutory damages. I attached pictures, emails, text messages, and all sorts of other proof that every one of their claims relating to why they didn't refund the deposit were complete fabrications. Their attorney called wanting to settle for $1,000. We told them no way. Wanted all $6,400. They didn't respond to my second MSJ. Hearing was scheduled for last Friday. On Wednesday, we get a settlement offer of $4,500. My attorney counters with $5,400. They accept. After 18 months, I got my cashier's check for $5,400 today. I know that she treated me like crap and booted me because I didn't hold the same religious beliefs that she had assumed I did. Then she felt like she could get away with stiffing me the $400 deposit. Because of her buttholery, she paid an additional $5,000. And the last, most beautiful part, my lawyer was free because I did all of my own paperwork and he just signed off on it and talked to the other lawyer a couple times. Her lawyer, definitely not free. I'm glad it's over. And maybe, just maybe, she'll be a slightly better landlord in the future. The last one is titled, Thieving Dogs Screwed Me Out of $4,000, I got it back and cost the dogs another $700,000. A few months ago, a company, Low Dogs LLC, was required to sell some pretty rare stuff. Low Dogs was very cozy with another company, Morality Limited, that wanted the stuff, but the industry we're in is highly regulated and so Low Dogs couldn't just sell straight to Morality. So to be seen to comply with the regulations, Low Dogs offered to sell the stuff to some other people, me being one. They said that if we wanted the stuff, it was ours, and if we didn't, well then they would sell it to Morality Limited. In that way, they would comply with the regulations prohibiting direct sale to their buddies at Morality Limited. So I get Low Dog's offer and you know what, it's actually very well priced. I say thanks, here's my check, and await my stuff. Tick tock, no stuff. Call Low Dogs up and say yo, where's that stuff I bought? And they say oh, we sold it all to Morality for the same price we offered it to you. Here's your check back. And so I say, no, and I sue them for a few grand, that being the profit I didn't make by reselling the stuff they didn't deliver. Now Low Dogs could have sorted me out pretty easily. Settle my claim, move on. For reasons known only to them, they didn't. They chose that double dare option, engaged high-flying attorneys, and started fighting hard. Over a few grand. Old fisting donkeys don't bend over when someone tries to screw him, so all that did was provide further encouragement. I spent several weeks and several $1,000s putting together a detailed dossier on everything that had happened. Then sent it to Low Dogs and said, we can do this the easy way, sort this out, or the hard way, I'll provide this to the regulators. They said, you'll never bother, go away. Okay kids, whatever you think. So off it went to the regulator. I've really simplified the story above. It's actually a pretty complex situation, hence the huge work involved in explaining everything to the regulator, which Low Dogs thought I wouldn't trouble myself with. The regulator took a look at my dossier and came down on them hard. On my estimate, Low Dogs spent maybe $100,000 on attorneys in fighting the regulator, only to lose the argument. The regulator forced Morality Limited to give the stuff back to Low Dogs, who then had to give it to me and everyone else who'd placed orders but been denied, at the original low price. The profit that Morality Limited missed out on was something like $600,000. And as it happened, Morality Limited had contrived the original scheme with Low Dogs and they were planning to share the profits. Too bad, so sad. Amusing enough, but there's a kicker. Turns out the stock controller at Low Dogs, who was a butthole to me when I complained that I hadn't received my order, hadn't actually passed everything on to Morality. He'd kept some for himself, and sold it for a neat profit of about $20,000. When the regulator was investigating what had happened, that fact came out, and Low Dogs weren't happy. They were so unhappy, in fact, that the stock controller was promptly sacked from his $200,000 per annum job. Unlucky. Thanks for listening.